and welcome to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and as always, it's so great to have you. Thanks so much for being here, and I hope you enjoy the show. Well, I have been trying to get this wonderful gentleman to be my guest for many, many months, but his busy schedule has kept him from being here with us, but I'm lucky to have him today. His name is Rob Ruggiero. He's the artistic director for TheaterWorks Hartford, and I'm thrilled to have him here today as my guest, and he's here via Zoom, so we're thrilled to have him. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm so excited to be here and really thrilled to have a conversation with you.
Oh, thank you. What I like to do in the beginning, which we may not have talked about before we started taping, is I introduce the guest to the viewer. So if you'd be kind enough to tell us about your background, tell us where you've been, what you've been doing, where you come from, tell us about yourself.
Oh, that's a long story, but I'll be very brief. I have been, I guess, TheaterWorks Hartford. I basically started my career here, and I have been affiliated with TheaterWorks for about almost 32 years, 31 and a half years. I've run the organization for about 12. Once I started here in those years ago, my professional directing career took off. I directed plays and musicals all over the country, and even a production of Fiddler on the Roof in Athens, Greece. I do a lot of work down at Goodspeed Musicals, where I'm doing a show next season, and as well as just this season. I've had a small career in New York. I've had 2 Broadway shows and 2 off-Broadway shows. But my home and my heart is here in Hartford at TheaterWorks Hartford. And I'm so excited to share a little bit about that with you today.
Well, you're mentioning director and you are artistic director. Did you perform growing up? Was that ever a part of your life that you wanted to be in front of the audience?
Well, interesting question. I did act when I was in college, but as I was figuring out who I was, I toyed with dance. I was like a dancer, but not a really good enough dancer. I played an instrument, but I'm like, oh, not that well. And I toyed with fine arts and, of course, acting. And then when I was in an undergrad program at Stonehill College, there was near the end of that, I took a directing class. And I realized all those interests and all those abilities really served me as a person who directs plays and musicals. So I knew in that moment that was my destiny, and I really haven't stopped since. I went to grad school. I have a master's from Rutgers University, and I have an honorary doctorate from Stonehill in theater arts for the body of my work. So, and TheaterWorks and Hartford has really been my home base since the early 90s.
Now, you're mentioning director. What are your responsibilities in that title, if you will?
Well, I mean, as a person who directs the plays and musicals,
yeah,
you really are like...
Yeah, let's do both. Let's do the responsibilities of the director and then your responsibilities as artistic director.
Okay. Sure. As a director who, directs plays and musicals, I always describe it as like the conductor of an orchestra, because we pull together the creative team, the set, costume, lights, sound, designers. We work with a casting director, but ultimately the final choice on casting really ends with the director, sometimes with the director and choreographer. And of course, the producing theater has a strong voice in that. And my job is to create a pathway and a vision for a show and get all these amazing artists to play together well and speak to each other well. So what comes out is a cohesive vision, something I hope beautiful and well done. But it's, like the captain of the ship, the conductor of the orchestra. We don't tell people, like, ideally, you don't tell people, like, what to do. You guide them to get to their best work.
And what about your responsibilities as artistic director at TheaterWorks? I would think that would be a little bit different.
Yeah, an artistic director is responsible for the overall artistic vision of a theater. So I have my hand in all the programming. I select the season. Obviously, I consult, other team members. Is this a good show? Can we sell this show? And other colleagues around the country. I hire all the creatives, starting with the director for each show if I'm not directing it, and then we build out with the creative team, and then we cast the show, and then we certainly have like a bar of artistic excellence and a vision for a season that I, supervise and maintain. I give a guest director, I hope, constructive and positive and helpful feedback when I need to. And then a lot of those conversations about how we're going to tell a story or direction for a story happen in the hiring of that director. So an artistic director really is responsible for guiding, choosing, and maintaining a creative vision for a theater.
And I know my viewers are saying, but Deborah, you missed a moment. New York, Broadway, off Broadway. What on earth was it like with Broadway? You did 2 plays. Tell us what that was all about.
I did 2 plays on Broadway. My first Broadway show was with my dear friend who's now departed, Valerie Harper. It was a play called Looped, centering Tallulah Bankhead as the character by Matthew Lombardo, who's also a Connecticut playwright. And we had worked on the show regionally, and then it came in, and Val got a Tony nomination. But I can tell you, when you get your first Broadway show, there's nothing more thrilling, and exciting to be, on Broadway. And it's challenging because when you're in the Broadway playground, there's a lot of money at stake. There are a lot more opinions that you have to navigate as a director. But it was a lot of fun. Val was amazing. And we had done an off-Broadway show years earlier, and that's how Val and I first met. And that was a play about Pearl Buck called All Under Heaven. And then my second Broadway show was actually had its world premiere here at TheaterWorks Hartford as a play called High, and it starred Kathleen Turner. And Kathleen was also wonderful to work with, a very strong personality, a very strong and opinionated women, which I love. I love working. Both of them were very strong women and had great passion for what they do. And then my other off-Broadway show was also created here. It was a musical called Make Me a Song, the music of William Finn. And it was recorded live, so there's a cast recording of it, and it's licensed. And that was a really awesome way to do a musical off-Broadway. So that's pretty much my New York work right there.
Now, also the audience will say, I'm really not sure about TheaterWorks. I think I've heard of it. I may have been there. I'm just not sure about the details. Tell us about TheaterWorks. What's it all about?
Sure. TheaterWorks Hartford is in downtown Hartford, and it really is a contemporary, intimate theater. If anybody understands Broadway and off-Broadway, it's like Hartford's off-Broadway in all the best ways. The furthest row back is about 8 seats. It's a modified thrust, so we call it the hug. But the connection to audience and the play, audience and the art, is very intimate and very connected. I think it defines us a lot, and people love kind of the comfortable informality of what we do. We do all contemporary work, not all new plays. We've done some, recently produced Broadway, recently produced off-Broadway. We currently have a show running called Fever Dreams, which was written by Jeffrey Lieber, who is one of the co-creators of Lost. And this is only the second production ever of this show. And we like to invest and cultivate new voices and new work, but also do plays and musicals in a new way because of the intimate setting. A bunch of years ago, we had a very successful production of Next to Normal, with Christiane Knoll, who was a Broadway performer, and most of Connecticut audiences were used to seeing it in big venues and multiple tiered sets. And it's a rock musical. And it was probably one of our most successful, probably the most successful musical we've done. And I think what people got was something so connected in our space. They could hear every lyric. The actors were in the audience as well as on stage. It was very immersive. And I think that's what people love. That's what I love about TheaterWorks. And that's why I've stuck around so long. I think we have an awesome audience who's adventurous. I think artistic excellence is one of our, solid anchor values here, as well as radical hospitality. Like, it's the kind of space, if you're one of our subscribers or you come regularly and you showed up, our box office, which is like a hotel concierge desk, where they'd be like, Deborah, it's so nice to see you. I hope you enjoy the show. Here are your tickets. It's something we pride ourselves in. And, when you're down in that room, because it's a black box theater that is housed in the old Connecticut Gas Company. So we have this cool living room lobby upstairs. And you go down in, and you go down the stairs, you enter this beautiful black box theater, and you're basically communing with, like 190 people watching hopefully something really exciting or provocative or entertaining. It's a great experience. I'm very proud of it.
Now, you are theater-based. Did you ever think about doing film, video, television, anything else?
Again, a great question. I didn't. I guess I've been a theater guy my whole life, a theater person, a theater maker is probably the best way to put it. But there have been moments in particular that I wish I had opened up that a little bit, because I love collaborating with the actors. And in fact, when we were in the COVID shutdown, TheaterWorks Hartford was one of the few theaters in the entire country that kept producing. So we learned new tools. And in that time, we did a production of The Sound Inside that I call a film, like a theater and film, because I collaborated with Pedro Bermudez, who's a filmmaker, and we rehearsed the show. I rehearsed the show like a play, and then we filmed it on stage. There was never a live audience, and he led that part of the process. We filmed out of sequence. This was all on like a SAG contract, and I have to say, there was something thrilling. All right, here's the difference. When you work in theater and film, like I love the idea of being able to coach the actors, but you work till you get the shot. And once you get the moment and it's captured, it's there every single time. And you create this piece of art that's very consistent. And you know that every time somebody sees that, they're going to see the same thing. What's exciting about live theater is it's a complete opposite. What happens in the room with that particular audience on that particular night is a once in a lifetime experience. It comes, it's live, it's shared, and it goes. And it's a little tenser in that way, but a little bit more immediate. And I think that's why live theater is not going anywhere. Why live theater? The theater's gone through a rough time in the post-pandemic, but people still like live theater because it's an experience that you can't get anywhere else.
Okay, Rob, let's hold that break. I'm going to take a break. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You are tuned into Arts and Entertainment. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. And hello and welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host. We just took a break and we are back. My guest is Rob Ruggiero of TheaterWorks Hartford. And my conversation continues on with Rob. And Rob, what I don't want to forget is the website, twhartford.org. What will the viewer find when they visit it?
Oh, that is the place to go now, to kind of look at all the kind of program we have going on, to get tickets. Also, we love to hear from people live. We have, a great director of audience services and a great team there. So if you're that person that just wants to talk over the phone, you can call. The number is on the website. But twhartford.org is a place to look at the whole season, to look at what's running now, and to look at special programming outside of just the theater.
Now, you were talking before the break about how theater was doing post-pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, etc. How do you think theater is doing today? We're in 2024, moving into 2025. How is it doing? What's its future look like?
Yeah. Well, if I had the answer, I would be a very wealthy man, I'm sure. But
okay.
it's a tricky question, and I think that the crisis coming post-COVID, hit a lot of theaters hard. There was an article recently, another one in the New York Times, about people like staying home more, and the changes that happened socially during the pandemic had deeply negative impact on live theater across the country. We're coming out of it. I can speak for TheaterWorks in that we feel like we have our head above water. It's still not easy. Pre-pandemic, we had an absurd amount of subscribers. I think it was like 5,000 subscribers for a small theater. We're modeled on that. And, we are when we came out of COVID, we got down as low as, I think, our first season back, I think it was like 1,700. And so we're working up, things are looking up, the numbers going up, a lot more single ticket buyers, and we're kind of approaching 3. Now, from a national level, having 2,500 or 3,000 subscribers at a theater our size would be considered successful. TheaterWorks just had this wonderful history and connection with a larger audience, and for years we just were blessed. We had longer runs. We had 5,000 people to get in. So we're remodeling, reimagining, and figuring out how to rebuild, but also not go back. And I think that is one of the biggest, most exciting, if you find silver lining, is looking at, you said, where is theater going? And I think it would be limiting and a mistake to try to go back to what we had, but what can we have? And using the lessons of the digital world and the technology that's evolving, like how we can preserve and protect the live theater experience, but touch the audiences of the future. That's what we're doing, that's what we're looking at, and that's what I think we all should be doing.
I think also what's interesting is the season. How do you decide what you're going to show? Is there a particular way as artistic director that you make a choice?
It's a really challenging process. And, honestly, if you go quite simply, it starts with plays and stories that I have a positive response to. It's ideal, like this current season. I love every single one of the shows. They speak to each other, and they also stand on their own. I think they're 4 marvelous stories and our Christmas twisted holiday tradition. But I then also use the reflections of my team here. So anything I'm looking at, we put in a virtual file. I also put hard copies of the script on a table outside my office. And it doesn't matter which department you're in. If you're interested in reading the play, I ask them to read it. I hear their feedback. So that's that's part of the process to see what shows is the staff responding to. And then we pull together the senior team, and we talk about, okay, here's a sample season. I'm thinking about this show. Development. Do you think this will be sponsorable? Can we find producing partners? How is this going to be to marketing? We talk to the marketing team, is this a show that's sellable? And if not, and I really want to do it, what can we do to help that? And we have production there, can we afford this? How this is how I'm thinking of doing it. All those conversations happen. We now have a managing director, Jeff Griffin, who's a partner. So he brought two of the shows that we're doing this season to me. He brought the scripts to me because from the other theater he used to work at, he liked these scripts. So it's a community process, but ultimately it does stop in my desk, and I try and find stories that I know will speak to our audience, that I'm excited about telling, and that will hopefully do well.
And this show deals with arts, entertainment, and culture, which I think you probably know, but the audience is a lot of performers and a lot of directors and a lot of producers and behind the scenes and playwrights that are watching that would like to be able to present themselves to you at your theater. How does somebody do that? Do they go to the website? Do they give you a call? Do they just send something in? What are your thoughts?
Well, it depends which department, obviously email is like a really good way to do that. But if you're like an actor, we usually go through casting directors. If you're a playwright, we have a submission process that's on the website, and we ask for certain things. And it's all about finding connections. So if you're a designer or a director, reaching out sometimes with a specific project, or what we started doing again with the fabulous world of Zoom is I started having, it was a little more when we were quieter, during COVID, but I try to have one or two a month, like introductory conversations of artists that I don't know, because, it's nice to meet up with new voices. And so any of those ways. So you can go to twhartford.org and you can find all those answers there.
We're at the end of 2024. Have you chosen the 2025 season? Have you thought about 2026?
Well, we're in the 24-25 season, which is our 39th season, which is in place. And yes, I'm in the middle of planning the 25-26 season. Our season starts in October and ends in like June, early July sometimes. And yes, I am planning, because that will be our 40th season. So planning has already been happening for like a month or two. And that is more stressful than any other because it's our 40th. And, we want to make, when you have 4 slots, we're contemplating going back to 5. And, one of those might be a shared production. But we're also looking in this time in partnerships with theaters in the state or outside of the state are a really awesome way for all theaters to save some money, but also share an artistic product. So for example, the winter show, King James, which is about friendship and fandom, these two people unlikely that form this deep friendship over there in Cleveland over LeBron James, is a play I fell in love with that I saw in New York last year. But that production we're producing in partnership with Roundhouse outside of DC, outside of Washington, DC. And the way that we're collaborating, it's starting here in Hartford, and then it's moving to Bethesda, Maryland in June, late May, June. So it's a great way for us to save some dollars in how we're producing things, produce something really impressive, and also get our work seen there, and down the road, hopefully, their work seen here.
Okay, we are starting to run out of time. Any closing
I know,
thoughts
I
for the
talk a
viewers?
lot.
Yes, please don't go. Please don't go. Any closing thoughts for the viewers before we do go?
I would just, if any of your viewers have not been to TheaterWorks Hartford, please come. It's a very special experience. We'd love to have you. But, in a time where theaters in Connecticut and theaters around the country are finding their way forward, and I mean, whether it be TheaterWorks Hartford or any theater you love, I still think a great way to do that, to support them, is to subscribe, or if you choose a single ticket process, then find another way to support them or us. We really need you, and I think we're doing a great job of hopefully giving you experiences that you will remember for a long time to come.
Well, I want to thank you, Rob, for being here. We have run out of time, so I'm wishing you and the theater all the very best.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You have been tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. In case you need to reach me, I'm at artsandentertainment@mail.com. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show. I hope you have a super day as well. I'll see you next time.